fight inflation. Elisa Brady. This is Fox News.
The following 1460 WVOX news update is brought to you by Honda of New Rochelle at 25 East Main Street, New Rochelle, and online at hondaofnewrochelle.com.
A Dell employee who does not demonstrate sufficient loyalty to him personally. Victim an 18.
We see you.
636-2000. And now with your latest up-to-date forecast, here's
Right.
Military's Eye on Weather.
30 seconds out. 30 seconds.
The upper 20s. Mostly clear.
On a landline this morning.
Not a cordless phone or a
A cordless.
yes, those are even worse.
Okay.
A cell phone, they pick up everything. That's why
Here with Rich Thomas. Rich Thomas is the former mayor of Mount Vernon. And now, what happened here with Rich Thomas on 1460 WVOX?
Media station. My name is Rich Thomas. You're listening to What Happened Here. We're here every Wednesday at noon. Ask the question, what happened here? And to get into the issues, asking about the facts, the figures, so we can make some sense of what's going on left and right and make the best decisions we can make. Today, our guest will be John Hart. John Hart is a national conservative. He runs a group called C3 Solutions, which focuses on climate policies and the economic issues that they create. And he was the longtime communications director for the late Senator Tom Coburn, who even President Barack Obama praised for being, someone of integrity and very focused on in Westchester. A lot going on in my hometown of Mount Vernon, and I heard about the terrible news of a young person killing another young person here in New Rochelle, where WVOX is located. My heart certainly goes out to the families that were impacted by this. This is why we got to hold our kids with them, because as you know, COVID has really created a lot of mayhem and confusion when it comes to the amount of we don't experience, or the families that Wilbert and Rivera, those two young men, gave their life. They literally went and responded to a domestic violence situation. And, there were these people, to the Mora and Rivera families for their loss, for NYPD's loss. And I look forward to a robust discussion on what's going to happen next to make sure that, this war on the gundemic, we bring an end to the gundemic. Now, on the line is John Hart. Before I bring him on, I just want to let everybody know we'll take calls later in the show. But for the first few moments, we want to hear from him and lay out some issues, visit some things. The call-in number is 914-6. That some people consider, to the right side of things. I kind of look at it and I say, I think you're just right. When I looked at the position on, I haven't seen a situation where a nuclear power plant closes and emissions go down. I haven't seen a situation where a nuclear power plant closes and the electric rates go down. Before we talk about nuclear, Indian Point, and other policies, the climate policies and their economic issues, can you just share with everybody a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, again, John Hart, and I'm the co-founder of an organization called the Conservative Coalition for Climate Solutions. And I also run our news magazine. It's called C3. And what we're doing, let me give you a lot of the ex-former Pro Football Hall of Famer, Elizabeth Vance, who went on to run the Heritage Foundation. And then back to Coburn in the Senate for about a decade. So if your listeners don't know, a couple years ago, he entered the relations field, communications, and about a year ago, and found that countries that are economically free with lower taxes, less government, for strong private property rights, rule of law, those economies have a much higher environmental performance rating than countries that are less free.
Property rights and especially strong economic advances. But I'm curious to see if we can boil that down to a state level, because we're here in New York State, and we're regarded as the Empire State. But one of the key challenges that many have been afflicted with is high taxes here. and there seems to be no explanation on our energy plan. You know, I'm a former executive director of an energy coalition that had Indian Point as a member, along with labor unions and energy consumers, large and small. But you know, we worked very hard to help ratepayers understand the impact of of closing Indian Point, and thankfully the NRC did relicense the plant. But still, policymakers on the far left made it a point to say, you know, they want it shut no matter what. And right now, today, you know, New York State is short 2,000 megawatts of clean, non-emit, you know, virtually emission-free power. And you know, we have to talk about what that means for New York in the years to come. But also, when we come back from this break, don't change that dial. We're talking with John Hart on what happened here. So, guys, you know, we're getting into it. You know, share the link, let people know we're on the line, and let's keep pushing because we have a lot of ground to cover and a lot of issues. Everybody, don't change that dial.
Legal aid attorneys and a telecom billionaire from Zimbabwe, the director of the London School of Economics and Science, and the co-founder of the Bridgestone Group. Nissan is recalling more than 793,000 small SUVs in
Puerto Rico is the new go-to project seeking capital on the island. Set up your account today to see what the island has to. Good morning, Westchester. And now back to what happened here with Rich Thomas, the former mayor of Mount Vernon, on 1460.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. You're listening to WVOX, a Whitney Global Media station. My name is Rich Thomas. The name of our show is What Happened Here. We're here on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, where it's streaming on my pages, where you can find at Rich W. Thomas on Instagram or Mayor. Look at issues that are impacting our wallet, impacting our families, impacting our safety. We are diving in and asking the question of what happened, and then, you know, as we get into the facts, we start figuring out what we need to do next. And on the line, our guest is John Hart. John Hart co-founded C3 Solutions. It's a conservative climate policy coalition, a conservative coalition for climate solutions. And we're discussing issues related. We had some power structures here in New York, like Indian Point, that was providing clean baseload power with virtually zero emissions, and replaced it with, you know, carbon sources of power. So what are the economic issues that are created by that policy decision? What are the economic...
The way that I approach this question of nuclear and different technologies is using the analogy that you see in a lot of movies. You know, the asteroid or comet heading towards the planet, and you've got to do the emergency mission to stop it. So the latest movie that used that routine was Don't Look Up. Netflix, sometimes fairly, sometimes not fairly. You know, movies like Armageddon, you know, Deep Impact, and the idea is that, like, if there's a crisis where the Earth is about to be destroyed, you know, there's the emergency mission to launch the spaceship to stop it. If you apply that to climate change, and if people really believe, let's say for the sake of argument, we really do have 10 years before there's catastrophic, you know, climate emergency. Okay, we can go off and argue that if you would like. That's a very complicated assertion.
Mm-hmm.
But let's give them the premise that there's a 9-year window here. Okay, we have the technology today to launch that spaceship and massively reduce the risk of an impact. And the primary technology we have, Rich, is called nuclear power. So when the left says you need to, quote, listen to the science, they're the ones not listening to the science, because science and technology has already produced a source of energy that produces zero carbon emissions, zero CO2. And if we chose to scale it up, we could do it very quickly. And in my work for it, there's an MIT professor, encourage you and everybody listening to read, called, his name's Terry Emanuel.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not a doctrinaire conservative guy, but very smart and Kerry wrote a piece called Nuclear Salvation. And he made this argument that, look, if there's an imminent crisis, we have technology today to massively scale up nuclear, and we could do it at a cost of about a net $100 billion a year. Now, that's not insignificant, but if you think about it in the scope of just the U.S. federal budget, $100 billion is what Joe Biden asked for the Department of Education. This is a matter of comparison. So what is the existential crisis? Is it not funding Department of Education? Is it not funding a Medicaid expansion, universal preschool, or these other things that the Biden administration wanted to do is build back better? Or the existential crisis of climate change? And if that's the case, then why are we not scaling up technologies that already exist? Now, that's how we should think about it. And so it's insanely irrational
Mm-hmm.
to shut down these plants without. You could argue that, well, God, why don't we have a better version of it? Well, we do actually have better nuclear technologies. We have small modular nuclear reactors. There's been massive advances in the technology and the safety, but the left has kind of the earmuffs on. They don't want to hear it. But we're not willing to look at the science.
And that's hitting people here in Westchester, particularly hard. With the closure of Indian Point, over 1,100 jobs were lost. The Utility Workers Union, Teamsters 456, carpenters, you name it. The electric rates have gone up, and our utility company, which is called Con Edison here in New York, their rate hike is expected to be, incoming pretty soon. And when I look at the energy mix of New York, you can just look back a few years. A few years ago, New York had maybe 13 to 20% of its power from non-carbon emitting sources, including nuclear. Today, that percentage is much smaller, and over about 80% of New York's power comes from fossil fuel emitting sources. And now the question is, like you said, how do you replace it? So we had a good system. It was already built. It got broken by bad climate policies. And people are rightfully going to start, I think, revolting when they see their electric bill jump, by huge amounts in the next couple of weeks/months, because there's nothing that's affordable, reliable, or even clean enough to replace power generated by nuclear energy. And what I find most astonishing, and maybe you have more perspective on this, is why. How come the Nuclear Regulatory Commission? Now, people are saying, man, this is like sexy like sewers, but it's a real topic that impacts you in your wallet. And it impacts the future of our children and our planet. So we really do have to take a moment to zoom in on this. But of all the agencies, the NRC doesn't seem to have permitted new nuclear technology to be deployed. It's really confusing as to why. What's the holdup?
Yeah, that's a great question. What it really boils down to is political tribalism and just a lack of honest thought and integrity. You have a progressive movement that is aligned with kind of this anti-nuclear fanaticism. And just to quickly put that in perspective, the dynamic that you're living through in New York right now, where you're shutting down plants and that energy has to come from somewhere, it comes from fossil fuel. So it's making the environment less clean than more clean. And that dynamic is at play right now in Europe, where countries like Germany have shut down their nuclear plants. They've made themselves dependent on Russian natural gas, which actually burns dirtier than American. And that is increasing the chances of war in Ukraine. And so these things have very serious consequences that progressives are willing to look at.
Well, we're going to get into it when we get back from break. Don't change that dial. You're listening to What Happened Here on WVOX. Don't change that dial. We're right back from this commercial break. Y'all hang in there. This is a great discussion. A lot of people are asking the question of, well, what are we going to do? Why does Ukraine matter? Well, we're getting into that.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Chris Foster. Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer will retire at the end of this term, giving President Biden a chance to replace him with another liberal justice while Democrats still control the Senate. That would keep the balance at 6 justices nominated by Republicans, 3 by Democrats. Breyer's 83, the court's oldest justice. He was nominated by President Clinton in 1994. Russian media reports the American ambassador has arrived at the foreign ministry in Moscow.
You got a call, Richard.
Okay. You know who it is? Hey, okay, Vince. Well,
Consider leaving due to the unstable security situation caused by Russian troops on the border.
Russia is turning up the heat in diplomatic efforts.
Если конструктивного ответа не последует,
Foreign Minister in Moscow, Sergei Lavrov, saying today Russia will take retaliatory measures if it doesn't like the United States' response to a set of security demands.
Fox's Silent Owen and Kyiv, Ukraine. America's listening to Fox News.
One of the most important things our local WVOX radio station is known for is to alert and inform our many loyal listeners about schools, churches, temples, meetings, after-school activities delayed or canceled when snow and ice storms arrive. These announcements are the kind of information everyone in Westchester...
welcome back. Sorry about the live interruption.
1460. Official, all-important, informative, and informational storm announcements, and they are being made possible through the generosity of New Rochelle Chevrolet at 291 Main Street, right here in New Rochelle. New Rochelle Chevrolet is a superb Chevrolet dealership.
Welcome back.
Helping them get in on really good deals, because
Gotta stay strong, man. We gotta stay on it.
The staff at Shell Chevrolet, with Frank Endress at the helm, only want the best for their customers. New Rochelle Chevrolet will be informing you as to what is closed on those snowy, wintry days, because they have been named the exclusive sponsor of WVOX's Storm Alert. Thank you, New Rochelle Chevrolet, for bringing these reports to the WVOX listeners.
And now with your latest up-to-date forecast, here's Steve Pelletieri's Eye on Weather on 1460 WVOX.
I'm here.
Continue. High temperatures will climb into the upper 20s. Mostly clear tonight. Overnight lows falling back into the lower teens to near 15. Mostly sunny on Thursday, a bit milder through the afternoon, highs to the lower 30s. Increasing clouds at night. Could see some light snow.
Hang on, man.
Friday.
Just
His highs will climb.
staying healthy, thanking God, and just working hard to make sure the family stays straight. How about you?
Sunny to the upper.
I know you're still dropping that fire. Yo, D-Tech, let's do it. Send me a DM. Let's make it happen. Here we go.
With Rich Thomas, the former mayor of Mount Vernon, on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back. You're listening to WVOX, a Whitney Global Media station. My name is Rich Thomas. The name of the show is What Happened Here. And we are here every Wednesday from 12 p.m. noon until 1 p.m. And I can tell you right now that on 1460 AM on your dial, worldwide, WVOX.com, you are hearing some real fresh current views from not just me asking the question about what happened here on our climate policies, what happened with COVID chaos and mask mandates, which we'll get to at some point later in the show. But we have some situations boiling over in the Ukraine that ties into our energy policy, not just here in the United States, but on a broader perspective. Our guest is John Hart. He is the former communications director, longtime communications director for the late Senator Tom Coburn. We were talking about the implications of energy policy when it comes to our security on a broader standpoint, as it relates to Ukraine, where power plants have walked away from using nuclear power in turn and in favor of more fossil-based fuels, reversing gains on climate by taking away non-emitting sources. But as we were approaching break, we received a phone call. And we received a phone call from, I believe, Vince. Vince, you're on the line? Hello, Vince.
like comment. A lot of issue involving climate change is rather interesting. You know, the folks who are zealots about this seem to ignore the fact that climate does change, always has changed. Matter of fact, you're in the studio right now, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
15,000 years ago, when you were sitting, covered by a mile thick the ice.
Wow.
When it all melted, it's when we have your Mississippi River, and other things. Climate has always changed. They've even found fossilized remnants of fern trees on the North Pole. So look, climate changes. Politics of climate change and man-made interaction on it is really the issue here. There are many, and maybe I guess might want to speak on this, who really are not so much interested in climate change, but using it as a weapon to destroy America. India and China are hell-bent on producing as much pollution as they need, coal-fired plants, and nothing really done about it. The Nord Stream 2 pipeline is trying to prove locks Germany into a death grip with Russia for energy, as you're saying, with implications in Europe and the Ukraine. Here in Westchester, they close Indian Point. We're going to get zapped with huge energy bills. Most folks can't afford it. And just two last things, and then, and hang up the list, I guess, who's with me on it. Just wanted to point out that long-suffering residents of your town, Mount Vernon, are now going to be hit with new limited food and free on top of their taxes. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I've been following that, and I definitely have some thoughts on that, and I will expand on that probably toward the end part of the show, only because I want to, give you and John the opportunity to finish on the. Yeah. We'll trust me. We're going to ask what happened here because there's a lot going on there, especially with the Supreme Court, and I definitely just want to contextualize. John, you got a lot going from local to global, and I just want to offer up if you want to respond to Vince, who kind of summarized the situation very very succinctly.
Made a number of important points. I mean, one is that Vince suggests that there are people talking about climate change that have alternative motives. So he is 1,000% correct there. What we've seen in the climate change debate is the left use the issue of climate change to try to advance a bunch of unrelated social and policy goals. And it's astonishing when you look at the failure of the Build Back Better project. And there's a debate on the left. New York Times actually has a piece came out 2 days ago on this, where they're debating, should we have a standalone climate bill? It's like, well, I thought you said this was the existential crisis. How would you not? Back to my analogy earlier, why would you not launch the spaceship to build the asteroid to deflect it? And because they don't really believe what they're saying. So there's, on the right, the allegation is there's the climate deniers, which isn't really true. But on the left, you have climate hypocrisy. You have people saying this is an emergency and a serious problem, but they don't act like it. Their behavior does not line up with their word. Hence their willingness to shut down nuclear plants and just the energy burdens the less clean forms of energy. And I think on the science point of it, I think because the left is so dishonest and disingenuous about their own statements, people rightfully are highly skeptical about the overall scientific projections here.
Right.
So again, going back to Kerry Emanuel, one of the most severe thoughtful, he is not an alarmist in the way he talks about this. So I think this should be about as emotional of a topic as fire insurance. Because that's really, there's a 1 in 3,000 chance your house is going to burn down in a fire. Okay, most people buy fire insurance anyway. And there's a slim but real chance human-induced CO2 emissions could have a catastrophic impact. There's a higher chance it would have some negative impacts in some place and frankly, good impacts in other places. There's a lot of uncertainty. So to me, it's prudent if we can move to cleaner forms of energy, let's do that. And economic freedom is the way to do it. It's not through heavy-handed, top-down central planning, government regulation. So it's a lot, a great analogy too was like East Germany versus West Germany at the end of the Cold War. There was literally not just a line of the Berlin Wall, there was a line of soot. So the buildings in the East were visibly dirtier than buildings in the West, because central planning and socialism doesn't work.
And I want to just expand on that real quick on the regulation part and how it doesn't work. Even with solar, which I'm a big proponent of, and battery power, distributed generation. Bill Maher, who's one of my favorites to watch on Fridays, even he can't get a permit for his solar roof out in California. He's been waiting about 8 years for a permit. And so when you talk about regulation and bureaucracy and how, all of these, red tape fans is what I want to call them. They just want to add more red tape to stop progress, even if it's for, protecting the environment. So Vince, I think we touched upon a lot of what you pointed out. You have any other final questions for our guest, Vince?
Well, climate change aspect. Don't get another call that with the conspiracy theory, but I do believe that there are many aspects of the climate change movement, so-called, which really have a root in anti-Americanism, anti-Western worldism in terms of its philosophy. And I don't know if that's something that you see or you care to comment on, but it seems to be a hell-bent destruction of the free market capitalist world. I don't know if that's anything that you would care to comment on, but I'll leave it at that.
I don't think you need to. Yeah, you don't need to assert a conspiracy theory. I mean, I was just in Glasgow at the COP. I mean, this issue of climate change, without a doubt, is a proxy war against capitalism. So and they're very overt about that. I mean, the Green New Deal in the U.S., AOC marquee proposal, it overtly linked climate to totally unrelated issues like care for all, universal free school. So they're very transparent. You don't have to assert any kind of conspiracy. It's on its face, it's obvious, prima facie, huge lot. That's what their stated goal is. They believe that we need to destroy capitalism, and our position is actually if you want to, we're clean by capitalism, and that's what the history of economics shows, is that if you want to have a cleaner environment, embrace economic freedom. So we see that's an overt argument here. Maybe we're going to the overt argument in reverse.
Well, I appreciate your thoughts on this. And, Mr. Mayor, you're off to a great start. Keep it up.
Thank you. We definitely will. And I can tell you right now that, when I hear these policies come from people that are in my peer group, it's really frustrating because they simply don't understand, that most of us live in reality and we need to keep, asking the question of what happened here so we can make better decisions so our kids don't have to suffer going forward. Don't change that dial. You're listening to What Happened Here on WVOX. Yeah, who's the next caller? It's Chris. Do you know what he wants to talk about? Just so I can tee it up and make sure. Okay. Just let him know I'm gonna bring him on at the top of the next segment. The next segment is the last segment, right? Okay. All right. So just let him know. I'm just gonna know we're running down on time. We have some. I just want to get some final thoughts from John on a few other topics. All right. Thank
Will
you.
retire at the end of this term, giving President Biden a chance to replace him with another liberal justice while Democrats still control the Senate. That would keep the balance at 6 justices nominated by Republicans, 3 by Democrats. Breyer's 83, the court's oldest justice. He was nominated by President Clinton in 1994. Russian media reports the American ambassador has arrived at the foreign ministry in Moscow to deliver the Biden administration response to Russian security demands for Ukraine. The Americans
Everybody got a party, man, especially my brethren.
unstable security situation. caused by Russian troops on the border.
And D-Tech, don't forget to send me a DM about, vibing with you on your show. You just want to make sure you heard that, D-Tech. Make sure you send me a DM.
The United States' response to a set of security demands.
This is Silent Owen and Kyiv, Ukraine. America's listening to Fox News.
The Fox News Podcasts Network. The Fox News Rundown. A contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day. Going far beyond the headlines. Tapping into the massive reporting
Part of that
resources
brief
Fox
break.
News to provide a full picture of the news of the day.
I'm Dana Perino.
I'm right there.
I'm Marie
Beautiful.
Blumenfeld.
I'm Brian Kilmeade, and this is the Fox News Rundown. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey, this is Trey Gowdy, host of the Trey Gowdy Podcast. Every Tuesday, you'll hear what's on my mind. Plus, every Thursday, there's a special bonus episode where we answer the questions that are on your mind. Make sure to spend your Tuesdays and Thursdays with Trey. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts. Hope to see you.
America's listening to Fox News. Do you have any vintage guitars from the 50s, 60s, or 70s that you're no longer using and would like to sell? Fender, Gibson.
My beloved city. That's all I can say. My beloved city.
Instruments. It doesn't matter if they're working or in need of repair. For a no-hassle, quick cash transaction that will bring top dollar.
Mount Vernon, Mount Vernon.
Guitar out of the closet and call 914-712-6642. That's 914-712-6642.
The finest funeral facilities in all of Westchester County. We represent a 4-generation tradition of providing the highest level of personal service. Our reputation has spanned throughout the county, and families have traveled the extra mile to call upon us during their time of need. Our spacious facilities and parking area provide immeasurable convenience to friends and loved ones. Most importantly, diligence, dedication, and passion of the Graziano family.
Yeah, it's probably my signal. To be honest with you, it's probably my signal. I hope it's not. Anybody else watching on Instagram seeing my signal coming choppy? By any chance, anybody? Everybody? Let me know.
Our licensed funeral directors are on hand.
Because I turned down the volume on the headphones so you can hear, but I just want to make sure it's coming across clear for you. Anybody hearing the sound okay?
I'm Jen Graziano. When you call upon Cox and Graziano in your time of need, you are treated like part of a family. Mine.
Best way to start your day. Good morning, Westchester, with Dennis and Tommy. Weekday mornings from 6 to 9, right here on 1460 WVOX.
And now back to What Happened Here with Rich Thomas, the former mayor of Mount Vernon, on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. You're listening to WVOX, a Whitney Global Media station. My name is Rich Thomas, the former mayor of Mount Vernon. The name of this show is What Happened Here. And we are here every Wednesday at 12 noon going over questions, asking what happened here. Today, our guest is John Hart from C3 Solutions. It's a great, vibrant discussion on energy and climate policies and the economic issues they create. The mission of our program is just that, to ask the questions, look at the facts, and try to figure out what do we need to do next to get it right going forward. The call-in number is 914-636-0110. I know that there's a queue of callers that want to get on real quick. And John, there's one more caller that wants to ask a question before we wrap up the show. Caller Chris, you're on the line.
Hello?
Hello, Chris. You're welcome to What Happened Here.
Did I hear correctly that the effort against climate change is a war on capitalism?
That seems to be the actions based on the policies that have been put forward.
Well, would it about the efficiency that's involved with climate change and dealing with climate change, the enormous efficiency that could occur by solar, wind energy, all kinds of alternate energy.
That's the problem, and I was mentioning that before break. Is like Bill Maher, famous liberal that cannot get a permit to put solar on his home in California. It's been about maybe 8 years, and it's comical because it's like here's a guy that wants to do his part and put solar energy in, and he can't. And I can share with you horror stories of families in Mount Vernon. You talk to Solarize Westchester. There's a group headed up by the former Croton supervisor. And these guys can't even figure out how to get reimbursed when they have, out of Mount Vernon, set aside all the financial problems that was caused by the previous controller. But I just want to just point out that, solar's under attack by professed liberals, right? And I'm a Democrat. And I just don't understand why Democrats are not doing everything that they say they're going to do to affect good climate policies when the results are higher electric bills, higher emissions, a tenuous grid situation where the grid is not reliable. And those aren't my words. Those are the words from the New York State Independent Operator. They published their report back in October about in 2024, we may have rolling blackouts as a recurring situation if we don't do something to bolster the grid. So solar, battery power, wind power, all needed, but it can't get through the red tape.
Changeover is somewhat difficult. You got to remember we've lived on, fossil fuels for multi-generational, so it's not an easy transfer of power, so to speak. But I wanted to mention another thing, okay, with climate change, okay? The concern, I don't know if you've addressed this already yet, but is the speed that climate change is occurring now and the ability of the Earth to deal with that rapid change as compared to the historical changes in climate that our planet went through for millions of years.
Well, I want to just, thank you, Chris, for calling with your questions. John, I'm going to toss it to you to answer, but very briefly, I believe that, our energy policies and the technologies that are available can be, unleashed. The ingenuity behind capitalism should be celebrated and pushed. And we should be, allowing new technology, especially new nuclear, to participate in creating a more free agenda for our economy and for our energy security. So John, you want to add to that?
I think the callers, he's right that we need more efficiency. The question is, how do we best achieve efficiency? And I think to your point, the Bill Maher example can't get a permit. The co-founder of the organization I run is a CEO of a solar company. So he can have his own stories about the difficulties of getting permitting, how can an industry really thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is that government is the least efficient. The best way to make something expensive is when Washington makes it affordable. The best way to make something unsafe is for government to make it safe. So government regulation, government fiat is the least effective way of making something efficient. Now, I'm not totally anti-regulation. Yes, there's time and a place for some regulation, but on the whole, if the center of gravity is with the government, you're not going to get efficiency. If it's with consumers, if Bill Maher can get a permit, he's going to have companies competing for his business. Yep. And that competition is what drives the price of solar down and makes that technology more available, more accessible to more people, more affordable, and better. And that's where there are so many people in good faith who are, I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, whatever party you're in, we need to have a common sense conversation in this country and drop the partisan BS and just get to the issue. And the issue is, if you want efficiency, trust the consumers. Put power in the hands of people and not politicians.
I can't agree more, and I can tell you that as we look ahead and we look to the question of where do we go now, that's a great place to kind of put structure around. Let the consumers pick what they want to push forward, and I can tell you right now, solar, wind, battery, even electric cars, it's all coming. But the reality is when you stick that plug into the wall, there's nothing on the other side to, feed that socket. We're going to have a lot of unhappy people that can't charge their devices, can't charge their cars, and it's going to be a complete reversal in terms of, the focus of what we want to get accomplished here. So John, we're winding down to some, our final moments on the show. I definitely thank you for coming on and bringing a perspective that many do not hear about and can understand because they get it in snippets and bites. Any final thoughts before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, I would just say, on your question about nuclear, it's how do we change things? We change things by just getting the facts out of it. People just don't know. It's like thank you and your show and your listeners for taking the time to look at the issue. Just a factoid on nuclear. More people die in solar accidents than nuclear accidents. That comes from MIT. So people worried about nuclear for safety reasons, and those are legitimate concerns. But if you look at the actual facts, that nuclear is incredibly safe, and it's getting safer. So the way to change things is to educate people, is to have the conversations, respect one another, and just get the facts out there. And we're in a great country. Democracy can still work, and when people have the information and knowledge they need, they can change. So that's what we have to do.
And that's something that I look forward to see happen here, and that's why we asked the question, what happened here? And before we go, can you just share a little bit about Senator Coburn and the books you co-authored with him? And if people want to read those books, where can they get them?
Sure. Yeah. So Tom Coburn, incredible senator. He was a House member from Oklahoma, OP from Muskogee, and was in the House, and then was in the Senate for 10 years, 2004 to 14. I wrote a couple books with them. First is called Breach of Trust: How Washington Turns Outsiders into Insiders, came out in 2003. And that was a pre-Tea Party manifesto. In other words, it was a book by an authentic fiscal conservative about why we need to shift power back to people and away from politicians in Washington. Also wrote a book called The Debt Bomb: A Bold Plan to Stop Washington from Bankrupting America, which is sadly still very applicable today. I think, the concern about the debt goes in cycles. I'm a big fan of recycling government waste, not creating more. If you want to help the planet, you want to recycle government programs that aren't doing anything and let that money circulate with the private sector so we get cheaper solar, cheaper wind, all these great technologies that are coming online. So those are a couple of books that people can look at. And our news magazine is at c3newsmag.com, where we go into depth on really a lot of the issues we just talked about. So that's a great resource. And our organization, again, is C3 Solutions, the Conservative Coalition for Climate Solutions. We have some really tremendous policy papers, too, that are a great resource for anybody interested in these issues.
Well, I thank you for that. For those that asked online about the website, again, the C3newsmag.com. Listen, you've listened to What Happened Here on WVOX, a global media station. My name is Rich Thomas, former mayor of Mount Vernon. Very happy that you joined us for What Happened Here. Now you got the facts and can figure out what we need to do next on our climate policies so they make economic sense going forward. Thanks to our guest, John Hart and C3 Solutions. Looking forward to seeing you guys again and talking soon.
Great.
Thank you, guys.